If you like coaches who might crash out at a moment's notice, this is the matchup for you. We're talking St. John's, Ole Miss, Patino, Beard, in the Garden, Subi. Two teams that are struggling to find an identity. Two teams that flash moments of brilliance, high octane offenses, and then you turn around and it's like, why are they giving up layup lines? Why are they surrendering so many dunks? Why do these coaches want to pull their hair out? I'm so excited for this. The chaos potential for this game is so high, and yet you could have a lot of highlight reel type plays from the talented players. Like you referred to him as French Halliburton with Ilias Camaradine for Ole Miss, who's coming off a really tough game against Miami, but outside from that has been awesome this year. Of course, with St. John's, you got Zuby, you got Bryce Hopkins, you got any number of high variance volatile guards. Like this game, if nothing else, it'll be entertaining, even if it results in a blowout. There are going to be fireworks at some point. So I'm going to kick it to you. Let's start with St. John's. They're the better team here. They're the one who I still think you can squint and see potential to reach that like top 15, top 10 ceiling that many believe they had. However, coming in at 4-3, some tough losses at the Players Era Festival. What do you want to see out of the Johnnies in this one?
So you started this by asking a lot of questions. Can I add another question to that, Riley? Why are we so addicted to St. John's hoops, man? Because we have zero ties to the
Mm-hmm.
Johnnies, and it feels like we're on every preview and recap, which I'm cool with, right? There's something about seeing that Johnnies in the Excel spreadsheet that Greg sends out where I'm like, yeah, I want to talk them. And I'm like, you know what? It's probably because their offense is so much fun to watch and
Mm-hmm.
they just play a really entertaining brand of hoop. Like I just had a preview with Matt Moderno talking Iowa, Maryland, where you talk tempo, pace, and I'm just like, goodness gracious, I'm about to go to sleep. But talking, I mean, I was excited to talk about it, but the Johnny's offense, I was like, I love them so much. But then it also asked, like, it got me wondering, Riley, again, this is part of the appeal. I think it's just, I don't know, the volatility of them as a program. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are they losing these games? Their offense is so sick. It's so much fun, but why are they losing these games? Like, what is the common theme in their three losses? Is it just that their opponents are ranked in two of them?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just because they didn't straight up they didn't score enough, right? Against Bama, they scored enough. They just couldn't get a stop at home. And Bama's really good, but like in two of the losses, they didn't score enough. And Iowa State is elite defensively. Auburn's not. So I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
Riley, why do I love these guys? I think just because they drive me insane.
That's a good way to put it. It's part of the mixed bag of that guard room. I think it was that Iowa State game where I thought they did play well enough to win. We recapped that one. That was a super entertaining game, back and forth, pretty much the whole afternoon. But like when your most reliable guard is Dylan Darling, maybe that's what just leads to some of the chaos where it's like, oh man, Dylan Darling's making an impact. And then you look at the box score, it's like this dude shot 1 for 7 from the field and had 4 points. He just was like more feisty on defense than anyone else. And then you get him fouling out like in the Iowa State game. And sometimes it's just the Patino quotes that make it so great with I wouldn't say it was Dylan Darling. That's a ridiculous question. Like you get those types of moments. That is what
That was
gravitates.
good.
Thank you.
That was really good.
I actually don't know if I've attempted a Patino impersonation before, but I feel like that was a solid first attempt on my part.
I mean, it came off the tongue very, very smooth.
I just love that he told Matt Norlander that's a ridiculous question, um, but yeah, I think I would be very fascinated to see. We have several St. John's fans in our Sleepers Media Discord. Of any of them to weigh in, or any of the viewers in the comments to say, like, what do you think this team's identity is at this point? Is it strictly like, let's get up and down the court? They played at such a fast tempo this year, 22nd nationally offensively. I mean, they were at 19 a season ago, so I guess that's about on par what you expect. But you go 2 years ago, Patino's first year. They've certainly ratcheted up the tempo since then, and you probably attribute that to him getting more comfortable, getting his guys in motion and everything, and just even the history of him as a coach. The Patino press, they like getting out and running, but like they get on and run, take a bunch of threes, have so far on this year made a bunch of threes, like in a way that you didn't expect last year. But beyond that, it's like who's who are you leaning on in the clutch? I think Zuby has had stretches where he's looked like the
Yeah.
best five men in the country. I think there's times where Bryce Hopkins has looked like this super versatile scoring wing who I fell in love with 3 years ago when he was at Providence. But it still just feels like there's not quite enough cohesiveness to understand like what are our roles on this team? Who are we leaning on when the game gets tight? Can Zuby, like as brilliant as he's been in stretches, can he be a little bit more consistent? Can you know what you're getting from him on a night in night out basis? It's those types of questions that I still have with this team.
Yeah, and I think they're fair questions. You talk about identity. I think it should be a slam dunk, Riley. And I've been saying this ever since I think they played Bucknell when I was like, I want them to get to the 100 mark because they can say that they averaged 100 points on the season at some point. Put everything into, and I'm not going to tell Rick Pitino how to coach, but for me, put everything into your offensive identity. Make that your identity. Be the up and down run and gun. We're going to outscore you team. Now, this isn't the NBA where you can rely on that and have more talent based on an acquisition of X amount of players, and you can just win that way, right? Like you're not going to be the Celtics and win a championship by being one of the best 3-point shooting teams or shooting it at a crazy clip, but be the college version of that in the sense that I want them to pour all their a majority of their identity into the offensive side of the basketball and
Mm-hmm.
bring your lunch pail when you can defensively. I'm not expecting them to be great defensively, but if they want to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament, they're going to have to do that because the issue with offense is you might just go cold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like on a tough night and in a bad spot, or Rick Pitino might just pull you for the game, which is what we saw last year in a tournament game. But the point that I'm making, Riley, is I actually think for the Johnnies, it should be their offense. Like that should be their complete
Mm-hmm.
identity. And when you talk about tempo, I know we talked a lot about the Johnnies, but I think a path for Ole Miss here is they need to slow it down. They need to slow it down on the road, and that's what they do this season, at least. So the Johnnies are the better team, but they should have the advantage of the on the glass. The only issue here, though, is that the SEC, man, has presented Rick Pitino with a lot of problems during his tenure at St. John's. Um, this season, he's lost to Bama, he's lost to Auburn, right? And now he's got Ole Miss upcoming, but I think he lost to Georgia last
Oh
yead
yeah, uh-huh. That was
something
like their
along
one
those
loss for a
lines.
while, right?
If you look up his, I think he only has one win against the SEC as head coach of the Johnnies, and they've
Hmm.
played 5 SEC opponents or something like that, 5 or 6. So that is a little something to keep in mind. But I think Riley, as it relates to this game specifically, battle of the tempos is going to be huge, and just the way that both of these teams coming into the game. Let me make my point quickly. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Like
No, you're good.
Ole Miss is on a 3-game losing streak, but they've been competitive in these games, and they have a quality loss against Iowa, who I think is pretty good. Utah's not a quality loss. Miami might look like an NCAA tournament team, dude. As the ACC guy, I would be clamoring for that.
Mm-hmm.
They look okay. Utah's not a great loss, but I look at the Johnnies, and based on expectations, I'm like, come on, man. I mean, it's okay to lose to Iowa State, but I thought you could beat Auburn. I just certainly thought that they could beat Alabama. So there is a path here. Like I wouldn't call this a slam dunk victory for the Johnnies by any stretch of the imagination. And I think it's going to come down to tempo. Which look, Chris Beard can coach his tail off, man. Like I don't think there's a huge discrepancy here on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hmm. In terms of tempo, I think the path to victory is if Ole Miss can lean into like an old school slug it out type Beard performance. Like when you think about when he was at Texas Tech or even his first year at Texas, like they were comfortable winning games in the 50s. You know, his teams would get in the mud and dog it out basically. And I think when you have two physical shot blocking types with James Scott, Malik Dia in the front court, you can muck it up in the paint, make life hard for your opponent there. And again, it bodes well for going against an opponent that wants to run through their front court players with Zuby and with Bryce. Like everything, in my opinion, going back to the identity, I think everything needs to run through those two, and the guards need to step in and make their threes and get out of the way at other moments. Like you don't need the step back threes a ton from like Ian Jackson and Josan Sanan. You need them knocking down threes off the catch, picking their spots smartly, attacking closeouts, and clearing out and letting Bryce Hopkins go to work, or letting Zuby attack from the top of the key, because that's what's been the best part of their offense, particularly in the half court setting all year. Now, I think with D and Scott, they match up well there, but the bigger concern is if those guards do get going, or if the bigs command as much attention as I think they can for St. John's, that's going to open up a ton of opportunities for Sanan, for Jackson, for Sellers, who was awesome at the Players era. Like, just looking at that Ole Miss and Miami game, I know Ole Miss made the final margin competitive. They were down by, I believe, up to 20 in the first half against Miami. Actually, excuse me, it was like later in the game they got down by 20. And they were just like some of the worst closeouts I've ever seen from a Chris Beard team. I mean, Miami shot 11 for 25 in that game, 44%, and they were just moving the ball along the perimeter. And it seemed like no one for the Rebs wanted to exert any sort of effort to recover or to communicate, to not get burnt on a switch, to stay like none of the guards could stay in front of their men. They were giving up paint touches left and right. And you saw that reflected in the post game where you have Chris Beard alongside AJ Storr, who has been good this year. It's not
Yeah,
even
he's been
bad,
real good.
erratic AJ Storr. You're getting productive, efficient AJ Storr. And Chris Beard cuts him off and says, "We need to play different players." Like that bodes terribly for the state of this program. And yet, there's still a chance where all it takes is locking down defensively in one game and having an Ilias Cameradine legacy performance and eke out a close win on the Garden, and you're feeling pretty good about it. Like, I think this Ole Miss team has a lot of talent going into the year. I kind of viewed them as SEC dark horses because Beard did such an excellent job with the team last year, got them to the second weekend with a roster just full of largely nondescript guys and Sean Padula. Like, I thought he could, and even you could argue Padula's kind of a nondescript guy. Like, I
Mhm.
thought he could do that with a little bit more star power, and so far just hasn't materialized. It feels like a massive spot for the Rebs to at least get any sort of semblance of life. But ultimately, I think this Johnny's team, just the talent advantage could be too much for them to overcome.
Yeah, I think one other thing, you hit the nail on the head on a lot of great points, and I'm glad you mentioned AJ Store because I'll be honest, guys, he was the butt of a lot of jokes last year, and if we're gonna dish it out like that, we also got to go on the reverse where he's found another home. I understand that that's going to be another joke, but he's played really well. He's played really well. He's shooting lights out from three. So are two other guys for Ole Miss. They got three dudes who are shooting above 50% from three. We got Pinkins and Giffa as well, and obviously they've taken a little less, but I
Mhm.
mean they've gotten up 14 plus threes on the season, and look, that's three guys that can shoot from the perimeter. So I'm glad you mentioned that, but it's also worth noting like they got guys that can shoot, man, and
Mhm.
that should be a bit of a frightening proposition for the Johnnies. Who, again, your offensive identity is what I think the identity should be.
Mhm.
You might have to close out on the perimeter here, though, and this is going to be an interesting game. I definitely think it's if I was looking at this preseason, Riley, I'd be like, this is going to be a runaway for the Johnnies. But what I've seen from them specifically does not give me confidence that I can say it's a runaway.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think there's a world where if Ole Miss exerts the same amount of effort, if they get crushed on the glass like they did against Miami, if they don't box out in possessions, then yeah, I think St. John's runs away with it. I think they have too much size and physicality, and a guy in Dylan Mitchell who we haven't even mentioned yet, who relishes his role doing the dirty work. But I mean, if the supporting cast around Cameron Dean shows up, where you have Pinkins knocking down shots, where you have Giffa stepping in, if you have, I mean, Travis Perry hasn't shot great so far this year, but he can make some threes. AJ Storr surprisingly at 52%. Also, did you remember this is an AJ Storr revenge game? Began his career at St. John's.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I fourth school in 4 years, but he began his career at
What
St.
was
John's.
Johnny's, Wisconsin, Kansas, now Ole
Ole
Miss?
Miss. Yep.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
on down the line for AJ, but
Rambling, man.
Um, but he has shot like he did his freshman year at St. John's, which has been a good to see, like to see him return to that form. So yeah, I think I mean maybe it's oversimplifying it to say like, oh, who would have thought a basketball game comes down to making shots? But with Ole Miss, I would say being a little erratic, and yet they have enough firepower. They shoot about 38% from three as a team, that if they get going in this, they can slow the tempo down and make them play a little bit more at their pace. I think they can at least cover what should be about a 10-point spread. That's what Kim Pom has it as. I still don't see a way they win it though. I just don't think that's going to happen.
I think Riley, you and I have the same thoughts going into this. I'm at the fork in the road, and I'm just going to dive into my prediction here. I'm at a fork in the road with the Johnnies, and I've stated these are my guys, right? So when you do that, when you put 10 toes deep, you got to ride through it. And especially as a guy that doesn't make like pendulum decisions here in
Mm-hmm.
December. But they have not looked good, man. And the
Yeah.
Johnnies they should have been competing with UConn at the top of the Big East. They still might, but I think everything that we've seen, UConn is not only one of the best teams in the Big East, but certainly in the country. Right? They're probably the best team in the Big East. Big East doesn't look great. And the Johnnies are actually contributing to that in
Yeah.
terms of standards, right? So I'm at a fork in the road, but man, I was very close to picking this as an upset, like very, very close, based on what I've seen with the Johnnies, based on Rick Pitino's history as head coach with the Johnnies against SEC opponents, and I do have a lot of coaching respect for Chris Beard. I think he's done a wonderful job. He's an instant culture changer,
Mm-hmm.
literally wherever he goes. I'm not sure the status also of Dylan Darling, someone that you've already mentioned. I think he's a game time decision. That's going to be huge to find out. But if I'm going to make a pick, this is a show me something pick, Riley. The Johnny's got to show me something right now. Otherwise, I'm going to be like dangling my foot off the boat to jump ship. All right. But the Johnnies win 83-78.
I like that shout. And I will just add, even if we both jump ship, if it goes from, maybe right now we're like Rose on the Titanic, just exploring, seeing what it feels like to be at the edge. If we jump off, just trust we will still be covering every game for this team.
I love this team.